over. Hey, one thing I wanted to mention, we're out in the woods. Before we get going, I make people that come to my house do this. Make sure you check yourself for ticks on your way out. Because we're in the woods, we're in the field, there's sand. And they're out there, so take care of that. All right, the intermission's over. We had to wait for people who had to work to get here. Some of the speakers weren't able to make it. Really, most than usual, I guess. I don't know. But what I was going to do is sorry about that. Spend a few minutes talking about a couple of things that Susan Lindauer, a guest that was scheduled to make it, just couldn't, and Karen Kwiatkowski, another guest, couldn't make it. I'll just spend a few minutes talking. I've interviewed both of them. I'll tell you this, Karen was the easiest interview I ever did. Just really just spit anything out, and she could elaborate. You can go to Karen K for Congress, although KarenKforCongress.com. She was just in a primary race down in Virginia. She was running against the incumbent for the GOP in the 6th district down in Virginia. A typical GOP shill, New World Order, United Nations, NWO. You know, you can give it as many names as you want. And we talked about everything. We talked about Agenda 21. Karen Kwiatkowski, former ex-lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. She worked for the NSA. I mean, really an amazing lady. Spent a lot of time, hard work, exposing the neocons in the Pentagon. She's what you call a whistleblower. And everybody knows nowadays, being a whistleblower isn't easy. You're either a kook, or they send you to a psychiatric evaluation. They hold you indefinitely. It's not like that's brand new. You can just ask the other woman who was supposed to make it but couldn't, Susan Lindauer. She was the first American to be held on the Patriot Act because of what she knew. And I can tell you this about Karen Kwiatkowski. Even though she lost the primary, she told me next year, the next election, she's going to run again out of respect to the people who donated to her campaign, put their time and their effort into it, and no one will ever say Karen Kwiatkowski, was a one-trick pony like some of the others. They gave it a shot. People tried to gather around them, and when they didn't make it, they just forgot it and dropped it as a lost endeavor. Well, she's told me she won't do that. She would have spoke out for states' rights, about getting the United Nations out of America, ending NAFTA and GATT. I'm going right off the top of my head, guys. I hope I do Karen justice. I'm not going to really go on too long because I infallibly would say something. She was fully aware, she's fully aware, and if you want to catch maybe some of the interviews or just Google her or go to Karen K for Congress, find out she was a very astute woman. She really did help expose the neocons in the Pentagon back in the early part of the 2000s, right after the war, or right after 9/11. And the neocons, every last one of them are war criminals, if you ask me. I'm not going to try to put words into her mouth. But she's fully aware of the issues that surround us as Americans and the rest of the world as people. Pretty much doing this presentation right here, just in case anybody watches the video.
Yes, they will.
Absolutely. So if you're watching this video right now, go to Karen K for Congress or Google Karen Kwitowski. Don't ask me to spell it. Thank you. Wonderful lady, Spitfire, I guess I could say. I don't want to disrespect her in any way. But that way you can go and get ready to support her for her next run, for her next endeavor. She wants to do a radio show. Support anybody that wants to get involved. And don't forget, if she's going to run again, you can go to Karen K for Congress. I'm sure you'll be able to find updates. I was very, very excited to think that, that she was going to be here. She told me that it was really going to be a time thing, apparently, So anyways, Karen K for Congress. Screw the New World Order. Screw big government shills, big money shills. I know I can say this, and she wouldn't say, wait, I didn't say that. Screw the big pharma. Get rid of the GMO. She talked about hemp. She's not afraid of the issue or the subject. KarenK4Congress.com. Man, I wish I could remember more of her websites. But Karen, I want to thank you for coming on my show. You were one of the best, one of my favorite guests, one of the easiest people I ever interviewed. Karen K for Congress. All right, now let me talk for a few minutes about Susan Lindauer. Susan Lindauer wrote a book called Extreme Prejudice. You can find it at Amazon. Several places you can go and find it, but you could Google it or X-click it or start page it, search engine, Susan Lindauer. Whew, man. Yeah, Extreme Prejudice. Now Susan is an intriguing story. Susan was an activist, an international activist. She did a lot of work in Iraq after in between the two wars. Her goal was to end the sanctions. She saw millions of babies dead, millions of people displaced. Half of all the dead in Iraq in between the wars. The sanctions killed a lot of people. I'm not going to throw out numbers. Some people say 4 million, some people say 2 million. But even one, because it never accomplishes the stated goal. The leaders, doesn't matter what regime, if somebody were to impose a no-fly zone here in America, you think George Bush or Barack Obama would go without dinner? No. Us. Yeah. We. Yep. We. That's who pays. And we includes just regular people trying to feed their freaking families around the goddamn world. Pardon my language. And so Susan was pretty passionate. I really wish she could have been here. But she was pretty passionate about her work. Because of her involvement with different groups and her activism in Iraq, she became what they would call a CIA liaison or a CIA asset. She passed notes from our State Department. I'm not going to name names, I'll let her do it. You can find her book, Extreme Prejudice. You can go to YouTube or Google or any other place and you can search her name out and you'll find plenty, all right? The story gets, I'll spend a few more minutes here. Well, as a CIA asset, essentially, she sent notes from Saddam to the United States. And this is pre-9/11. This is before the attacks of September 11th. And the messages that she was sending to Iraq, to Saddam Hussein, were that if you had any knowledge of a terrorist attack, of any knowledge of buildings, and they were specific. And I'm only saying this because the idea that nobody knew is freaking ludicrous. Everybody knew. The intelligence agencies knew that something big was planned. Saddam Hussein, I mean, you can say what you want about him. I'm not gonna pass judgment. But he never killed as many Iraqis as we have. And is the life in Iraq any better now than it was? No, man, it's horrible. Their infrastructure is destroyed. Their children they have the highest instance of conjoined twins, birth defects, depleted uranium exposure. Our sons and daughters, our freaking kids, they're going over there being exposed. Depleted uranium, a plethora of other vaccines and injections. They're bringing them home, and their spouses are getting sick. These are the things that you don't hear about. The stuff that they don't want you to know. First responders dropping like freaking flies. Dropping like flies. It's the stuff they don't tell you about. They make you think that someone who's trying to ask for help is lazy, but it's not. People are dying. Anyways, back to Susan Lindauer. So Susan Lindauer is passing messages back and forth, and the Iraqis are saying, we don't nothing. Saddam Hussein won't allow Al-Qaeda in his country. He's afraid of radical Muslims. He's afraid of the instability that they bring, so he takes care of them, right? I mean, if you're going to call anybody a terrorist there, he was the one, I guess. You know, he was all those things. He was our boy, you remember. He was our boy. We talked him into and funded and was the little birdie in his ear. His war against the Persians, Iran. It was the United States State Department that told Saddam that, yeah, if Kuwait is angle drilling, which means they're stealing, then the United States wouldn't have anything to say about you invading or putting an end to it. And I guess that's the point where Saddam, of course, I'm not going to get into the fact that Saddam decided to use competing currencies, stop selling his oil with the US dollar. There's a lot of things that go into this, but it goes back. It goes back to, he used to be our boy, and this is standard operating procedure of our foreign policy. You read the documents, the PNAC documents, you read Zbigniew Brzezinski's Grand Chessboard. These people write down what they wish they could do, what they want to do, what they plan on doing. They know, or they believe there's nothing we can do about it. It's more than just theories. These whistleblowers aren't crackpots. They're people that see something wrong, they get up and say it. If you see something wrong, in the words of Martin Luther King, and you don't say it's wrong, you're saying it's right. Sometimes that takes courage. Sometimes that hurts you. Makes you have to admit some of your own fallacies. But that's the key right there. All right, Susan. After the sanctions, after we had goaded secretly as a birdie in his ear Saddam into invading Kuwait, he ceased to be our boy. I mean, it was part of the plan. Hey, he fell right into it. He fell for it. These people eat their young. You ought to know not to trust them. They certainly don't trust each other. Competition is a sin at the top. Not my words. So he goes to war, and we go in, and of all the alleged atrocities, the fake embedded CNN reporters that weren't even in Afghanistan or in Iraq, the stories of the incubator. Now let me tell you something. That whole story of the Iraqi soldiers raiding the hospital and taking the babies out of the incubators was created by a PR firm. It didn't happen. It was lies. Again, war is horrible. I am for peace. I'm more than just against war. I'm for peace. I'm for love, compassion, charity, empathy. These things are going to be lacking. You can see fiat currency over and over and over. You don't have to take my word for it. Use your internet, man. They can't last. They fail. If you're in paper, you're in trouble. If you get a chance to get out of paper, anything that's written in paper is going to be worthless. My opinion there anyhow. See, this is what happens. This is why you're not supposed to just give me the mic and say, kill time, dude. So anyhow, after the war, the sanctions kick in. We didn't get Saddam, so the sanctions kicked in. Sanctions never have and never will work. It's the people that suffer. And Susan Lindauer saw this, and she wrote a book. I'll say it again, Extreme Prejudice. You can find it at Amazon. Well, in her work as an activist, protesting, trying to end the sanctions, some of the things in the notes that she was passing back and forth, on top of the warnings that we would invade his country if we found that he had any connection with terrorism, with an upcoming event, and then afterwards the messages continued back that if we found out he had any links, any ties, that he would be dealt with terminally. And so Susan's passing these notes back and forth. And Saddam's not a stupid man. He knows what he's up against. It's not just the United States. It's the coalition. Yeah, it's the coalition. So he made all kinds. He was willing to, first of all, expel, round up any person that the FBI or the CIA was suspicious of. They denied. They'd never let any. I mean, you're talking about Sunnis, Wahhabis, and Shia. They don't get along with each other. Okay? Al-Qaeda was not welcome in Iraq. They were not there. They are now. They were not welcome in Libya. They're there now. They were not welcome in Syria. They'll be there. They are there now. Our boys. Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda. Anyhow, so Susan's passing these notes. Saddam had agreed to all kinds of things to allow the FBI to open field offices, full investigation and arrest power in Baghdad. This is after 9/11. Economically, he had agreed to buy, I think it was either 1 million or 10 million U.S. cars from U.S. car manufacturers every year. For so many years. I mean, these are deals. The United States knew. They knew that they had Saddam Hussein, who's in charge of an oil-rich nation, in the middle of the Middle East, part of the grand chessboard, manipulated for years, decades. They knew that they had Saddam Hussein against the wall. I mean, is that a crazy demand? We demand that you buy 1 million American manufactured cars every year. That, and, we demand that you allow the Federal Bureau of Investigation to open up field offices, to arrest people without telling you, without your knowledge, to investigate you. I mean, these are some of the things. And so then the war starts. They find all the links, Colin Powell, Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld. They're all liars. Condoleezza Rice. Who'd have thunk it? They were running a freaking drill simulating that when it freaking happened. Who'd have thunk it? So Susan was exposing. She knew a lot. She knew that there was no reason to invade Iraq, that Saddam would agree to anything, any off the freaking wall demand. He allowed all the food in this nation to be GMO. Monsanto is deep into Iraq. Mandatory, mandated. Still we went to war. And it's not over. And still we don't talk about the trillions of dollars missing. The trillions of dollars we spent. 300,000 barrels of oil we burn a day, or a week, pardon me, rather. A day, rather, excuse me. More than 1 million barrels a week of sweet crude in war. Talk about global warming. We're putting all that into the atmosphere. War is the worst thing for the atmosphere. The only thing war is good for is people who rebuild cities after war and people who build bombs. And, of course, the people who loan money to the people who are going to war with each other.
Own it all.
The people who profit from peace are you and me. The people who spend their life just trying to feed their freaking family. Those are the people, those are us. We outnumber that stinking tiny little crew. They've got money, they've got power, but we can turn our back on them. I mean, we're way bigger. We outnumber them, we outpower them, we out-intellect them. We out-intellect them. I'm getting ready to bring this next band up. Are you beginning to see that there was absolutely knowledge? People absolutely knew. Saddam Hussein, the rest of these nations, their intelligence services were warning us. Susan Lindauer came back to the United States. She wanted to hold a press conference in New York, warning people, hey, it's not a if or when, it's gonna happen. I've been warned not to even come to New York. And so after 9/11, obviously, Susan continued her work, passing the notes. She was eventually arrested under the Patriot Act because she wouldn't shut up, because she knew that there was no reason to invade Iraq. 3 years later, absolutely no connection, no yellow cake, no weapons of mass destruction. You can ask Scott Ritter, they weren't there. Iraq complied. We're not talking about technicalities. We're not talking about just abstract ideas. We're talking about, look around you, babies, people. Imagine, what would you do? What would you do if a building blew up and that was, you know, it had your wife and your kids or your brother, your father, your baby? Who would you hate? Are we liberators? I'm not against the Army or the military or the armed forces. I don't hate the player, I hate the freaking game. I hate the scumbags. And it's not even the scumbags in our government that are worse, that are the worst. It's the one that funds both sides of the war. It's the ones that control policy with their money from both sides. Susan Lindauer was picked up. She was held. They couldn't do anything. They had to let her go. When she got out, she wrote Extreme Prejudice. I don't really need to go into all the things that have happened in the last 12 years. We're all there. We've all seen it. The invisible recovery. Hey, it's better. Yes, we can. It's better. We got hopey changey. My friend Kurt likes to say, whenever we get a hair up your ass, we drop Nobel Peace bombs on you. I hope you guys will understand at the top, the foreign policy, there's something we got to do about it. Susan, she's a trooper. She was a whistleblower, just like Karen. They were both demonized. I'm just proud as hell to know either one of them, to talk to them. Really wish either one of them could have been here. KarenK4Congress.com. You can find Susan Lindauer's work all over the place. Oh, Jesus Christ. I forgot to move your camera. All right. Enough about me. Let's talk about me for a minute. All right, so that's it. I want to thank everybody for listening to me for a few minutes.
Hey, Jimmy.
You give a round of applause for the message from a couple of people that couldn't be here. I hope if they see it, I did them justice.
The true patriot. It's hot.